Hello, my name is Abby and I am the Talking Book Librarian. Thank you for joining us for our book talk series. These videos will be recorded and on the Indiana State Library's YouTube channel, as well as the Talking Book Facebook page. The purpose of these book talks is to provide book ideas for book clubs and to include questions for you to answer for yourself or in a book club setting. These videos will remain online forever, so you can decide to read these books whenever you'd like. If you are interested in this book or any of the others, give the Talking Book employees a call at 800-622-4970. Feel free to pause the video at any time to answer any of the questions. The book we'll be discussing today is Horse by Geraldine Brooks. So a little backstory about Horse is Kentucky, 1850. An enslaved groom named Jarrett and a bay foal forge a bond of understanding that will carry the horse to record-setting victories across the South. When the nation erupts in civil war, an itinerant young artist who has made his name on paintings of the racehorse takes up arms for the Union. On a perilous night, he reunites with the stallion and his groom, very far from the glamour of any racetrack. New York City, 1954. Martha Jackson, a gallery owner celebrated for taking risks on edgy contemporary painters, becomes obsessed with a 19th century equestrian oil painting of mysterious provenance. And then Washington, D.C., 2019. Jess, a Smithsonian scientist from Australia, and Theo, a Nigerian American art historian, find themselves unexpectedly connected through their shared interest in the horse. One studying the stallion's bones for clues to how his power and endurance, the other uncovering the lost history of the unsung black horsemen who were critical to his racing success. Based on the remarkable true story of the record-breaking thoroughbred Lexington, Horse is a novel of art and science, love and obsession, and our unfinished reckoning with racism. And then there is a picture of the author, Geraldine Brooks. She has blue eyes, brown hair. She's wearing a scarf that is red and black, and then a tweed coat. Australian-born Geraldine Brooks is an author and journalist who grew up in the western suburbs of Sydney and attended Bethlehem College, Ashfield, and the University of Sydney. She worked as a reporter for the Sydney Morning Herald for 3 years as a feature writer with a special interest in environmental issues. In 1982, she won the Greg Shackleton Australian News Correspondence Scholarship through the Journalism Master's Program at Columbia University in New York City. Later, she worked for the Wall Street Journal, where she covered crises in the Middle East, Africa, and the Balkans. She was awarded the Pulitzer Prize in Fiction in 2006 for her novel, March. Her first novel, Year of Wonders, is an international bestseller, and People of the Book is a New York Times bestseller translated into 20 languages. She is also the author of the nonfiction works 9 Parts of Desire and Foreign Correspondence. Brooks married author Tony Horowitz in Tourette-sur-Loup, France, in 1984. They had 2 sons, Nathaniel and Bizayehu. I apologize if I completely butchered his name, and 2 dogs. They used to divide their time between their homes in Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts, and Sydney, Australia. Now we will get into the discussion questions. The first discussion question is, on page 28, which is based off of Theo in Georgetown, Washington, D.C. in 2019, Theo reflects that depictions of horses are among the oldest art humans have created. The book's epigraphs reflect on the significance of Lexington, in his day, an even bigger celebrity than Seabiscuit or Secretariat. Discuss the enduring human fascination with horses. Do they move you more than any other of the animals? And if so, why? The next question. Theo and Jess are obsessed with their rarefied fields of expertise. Does the author manage to convey why these unusual careers can be so compelling? If so, how? And if not, why? Jared's connection with horses is presented as stronger than his bonds with people. How does his love for and dedication to Lexington help or hamper his coming of age and his transformation over the course of the novel? Horse racing in the mid-19th century was very different to its modern iteration. What surprised you? Do you think horse racing today takes adequate care for the well-being of equines? On page 71, Thomas J. Scott, The Meadows, Lexington, Kentucky, 1852. Scott writes, quote, "We who think we are above enslaving our fellow man are corrupted. Only shows us absolute agency over the apt and the willing, and suddenly we find the planter's obduracy that much less odious. I must guard against the rank seductions of this place." End quote. How does the author draw out the similarities and differences between Northern and Southern attitudes in the era through Thomas J. Scott, who was a practiced observer and who moved between the two regions? Several historical figures appear in the novel, among them the emancipationist newspaper publisher Cassius Clay and his daughter, the suffragist Mary Barr Clay. What are Cassius Clay's arguments for emancipation to the Warfield family? Do you see the roots of what would become Mary Barr Clay's passion for the women's suffrage movement in the way she is portrayed in her youth? What are their respective strengths and limitations? How do novels make historical figures come alive for us beyond what we might find in a work of nonfiction? Martha Jackson was a real American gallery owner and art collector. Discuss her portrayal in Horse and what her relationship to the painting of Lexington conveys about her character. What does her storyline contribute to the novel's themes? What did her chapters reveal to you about America in that era? And did you notice any similarities between the art world of the mid-20th century and the horse racing economy of a century prior? Referring to the Civil War on page 87, Jess, Smithsonian Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C. in 2019, Jess says, quote, "Not my war, unless you call Australia the very deep South," end quote. Theo is also not American. Nevertheless, they're both forced to reckon with the legacy of slavery, particularly Theo, who encounters racism in his daily life. How does this affect their relationship? What does the novel reveal about the way history shapes our present moment? Discuss Theo and Jesse's relationship. What do you think attracts them to one another despite their differences? What do they learn from one another? Examine Jess's conversation with Daniel in the aftermath of what happened to Theo at the end of the novel. What did you make of Daniel's assessment of the situation? Do you share his point of view? And then those discussion questions were from the bookclubs.com. They have a lot of different popular book club discussions that you can always look up and pretty much find any other book that you want. But that's where I got those from. So now I would like to provide a few of my own thoughts on the book, just so that we can kind of wrap up. Horse by Geraldine Brooks. I enjoyed the historical fiction aspect. She is extremely good. You can tell that she was a journalist. She's very good at researching and putting that research into interesting ways into the book, writing it in interesting ways. I enjoyed that she covered 3 time periods, which is a little different. I'm used to 2, but I'm not used to 3 different aspects, which was fun. The 1800s, the 1950s, and 2019, which is the current time when it was written. I can see why it was an extremely popular book. We always had patrons calling in asking us the year that it came out, which I believe it came out in like 2024-ish, so close to the end of 2024 maybe. But I thought she did a great job. She weaved the stories really interestingly. I didn't find any of the one time periods more boring or less interesting than the other, which I think is hard to do considering that maybe the author might like one of the time periods better. But she did a really good job of presenting all three equally. I would have definitely recommended it. I think I rated it 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. I enjoyed it. I like historical fiction, and it's not very often that you get horses to be included in horse racing, which I learned stuff that I didn't know about before, which is always the point of historical fiction, knowing what's new, what have I missed out on? And that was definitely one of them. I really enjoyed the themes, being Black in America, being in slavery, and how his slavery looked different than the other slaveries we learn about in history and in history class. And I thought she did a really good job presenting it, especially considering that she's not originally from here. She is from Australia, so that's not something in American history that she's learned about or maybe lived through, but she was able to do the research and really present it in a fun and interesting way. So I definitely recommend it. If that's something you want to pick up, please give us a call. We would love to send it to you. And I think our next book talk is going to be in March, and we'll be going over The Wager, which is a nonfiction book by David Gran. So I will see you back in March, and I will talk to you guys all later.